Hey boys and girls, Mike Leverage here to talk about another artist who I don't think people talk about enough. One who I actually think, if anyone deserves to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, it's Genya Ravan. Genya Ravan, you ask? Yes. Well, Genya Ravan was born Geniusza Zelkiewicz in Lodz, Poland, in 1940. Not a good place to be born if you're a Jewish girl in 1940. So anyway, in 1947, her sister and her parents were the only members of her extended family to escape from the Nazis, and they ended up in the tenements of New York City, where life was not that great for young Genya, or Goldie as she was called then. And in 1916, at the age of 16 rather, she dropped out of school to get married to a much older person that was arranged by her parents, which she escaped, inspired by the Wild Ones, on the back of a motorcycle on the way to California. Anyway, like a year or so later, she was back in New York, and in 1962, after a great many adventures in her life, she ended up at the Lollipop Lounge watching a band called the Escorts, and on a dare she got up and sang with them. And the Escorts, which included Richard Perry, the future record producer, asked her to join the band, and they put out a few singles, one of which, a cover of Somewhere from West Side Story, ended up as the #1 single in the Detroit metropolitan area, her first brush with stardom. Well, eventually the Escorts broke up, as bands do, and she hooked up with a girl drummer named Ginger, and they formed an all-girl rock and roll band called Goldie and the Gingerbreads, who played around the New York club scene and were quite popular there. Well, around 1963 or so, another popular band of the era called the Animals were playing in the area, and Eric Burden, their manager, and a couple other Animals heard Goldie and the Gingerbreads playing in a club in New York and were greatly impressed. And so they said, hey, you guys should come over to England. I think you'd do really good over there. So they're like, what the hell, why not? So they go over there, and they're a big hit. They end up touring with the likes of the Rolling Stones, the Yardbirds, Manfred Mann and the Kinks. And they're huge over there in England and Europe. They even have a number 25 UK hit with Can't You Hear My Heartbeat? And they have a good run over there. And then eventually, like all bands, tensions arise and they break up. By 1967, Goldie, Genya, is back in the old USA. And she spends the next couple of years kind of playing around in the jazz clubs in New York City and just kind of learning the ropes and things and doing what she can. And eventually she meets up with a couple of college kids named Mike Zager, who's a keyboard guy, and Aram Shefrin, who plays the guitar. And they get together and they decide to put together a band, nice jazz rock band called 10 Wheel Drive. It's like a 10-piece, has a rock band with a 5-piece horn section, and Genya out front handling the vocals. And in 1969, they put out an album called Construction #1, which is a great little jazz rock album with a bunch of really cool songs. Here's the band, with Genya out front, and they have some good stuff. Tightrope opens it up, which is a really cool jazz rock number, and followed by Lapidary, which is a little more mellow. and Eye of the Needle, Candyman Blues, Ain't Gonna Happen, Polar Bear Rug, House in Central Park, and I Am a Want ad. And they have, you know, Genya's out front singing really great, like some blues rock kind of stuff, almost in the Janis Joplin kind of vein. But she also, they have more mellow tunes, ballads with flutes and everything, where she's a little more, you know, sultry and like that kind of thing. But she handles all the vocals with a lot of feeling and a lot of aplomb. And she's, this is a really great album, and it's worth picking up. I mean, I picked it up for $2.99, and I'm not sure what it is these days, but it's well worth whatever you spend on it. So this album was really good, and then the next year they put out another one called Brief Replies, which is more of the same, really cool jazz rock kind of stuff. Interesting solos from trumpets and everything. You know, it's a very fine album with more of the same. Great blues rock, jazz rock kind of stuff with great vocals from Genya. And the band is really good with great arrangements. Songs include Pulse, Come Live With Me, Morning Much Better, Brief Replies, Stay With Me, How Long Before I'm Gone, Last of the Line, Interlude, A View of Soft. They're all pretty much written for the most part by Zager and Sheffrain, and really good stuff in the vein of, you know, Blood, Sweat and Tears, Chicago, Cold Blood, these kind of bands that were really kind of coming up and in vogue in the late 60s, early 70s. In 71 they put out another album called Peculiar Friends. Peculiar friends are better than no friends at all, quote on the back. This is also a fine album. This album was actually the first one that was produced by Zager and Sheffrin, and it's more the same, good kind of gritty blues rock mixed with jazz with, you know, trumpet solos and guitar solos, and very good stuff. If you like Chicago or Blood, Sweat and Tears or Cold Blood, this, you would really love this stuff. This is a really great album from a really great band. And after this album though, Genya decides to leave 10-Wheel Drive, and she forms a band called Baby, which I don't know that much about them really, and other than they ended up opening for Sly and the Family Stone on a tour in 1971, and actually they get seen by Clive Davis, and he signs Genya and Baby to Columbia Records, and they put out an album called Genya Ravan with Baby that ended up being produced by Sheffrin Zager, her friends from 10-Wheel Drive, and it's I guess kind of an eclectic album. She covers tunes by Ray Charles, Stephen Stills, Leonard Cohen, and a bunch of other people, and all kind of different styles and everything like that. And evidently, you know, it was a little too eclectic for Clive, who was, it said, looking for the next Janis Joplin, and this album did not deliver that, so Clive unceremoniously just dropped Genya from Columbia after one album. Well, she got picked up by ABC Dunhill, and they put out this album, which is called They Love Me, They Love Me Not. And this is a really cool album. It's produced by Jim Price for Jim Miller Productions, and it's you know, it's a good blues rock album in the vein of like 1973. It's kind of what you would expect. You know, it's got some good stuff on there. Gotta Tell Somebody About My Baby, a Van McCoy tune that they cover. When You Got Trouble, You Got the Blue, Under Control, I'll Be With You, Southern Celebration, Missy Mister, That Crying Rain, Keep On Growing, the Derek and the Dominoes song, because, you know, they got a couple of the guys that played on horns on this album. Don't Press Me, Roll and Roll and Roll, and Swan Blues. This is a nice, great blues rock album with some, you know, horn flourishes and cool stuff. And she's singing up a storm as usual, you know. She's got great, gritty blues rock vocals, and this is a great album and worth owning, I'll tell you, because it's good stuff. She's a great singer, overlooked, but much deserved of anything she gets. Anyway, of course, she was dropped by ABC Dunhill after one album, and then she was picked up by Janus Records, and in 1974 she put out an album called Goldie Zelkowitz, which was her original name. And this was produced by Gabriel Meckler. It included a bunch of cool songs. She does a cover of Whipping Post. She did a cover of Hold On, I'm Coming, and a bunch of original tunes and stuff. And it was a very cool blues rock album. But unfortunately, she only did the one album for Janus as well. And so then things were kind of slow. She went into production, where she was kind of like the first woman to be like an outside producer for a major label, which was for RCA. She did a bunch of productions, and she hooked up with Hilly Crystal at CBGB's and was a producer for the CBGB's label. And she produced in '76 a band called Rosie, and in 1977 she produced the Dead Boys' Young, Loud and Snotty, which is like a landmark punk album and is on most of your top 10 punk albums of all time lists, which, you know, pretty good for Miss Raven. Good stuff. So she's going along, and then she decides, you know, I'm getting good at this production stuff. Might as well produce my own stuff. So she gets signed to 20th Century Fox, so she gets this album together called Urban Desire in 1978, which was a self-produced album. And it's kind of a very loose, kind of New York Dolls, Faces kind of thing, affair. Very good. She's up to her great, gritty, bluesy vocals. Delivers excellent stuff. She's got some great tunes on here. Starts off with Jerry's Pigeons, and then we got The Night Ain't Long Enough, Do It Just For Me, Shot in the Heart, I, Colorado, which is a duet with Lou Reed, and Back in My Arms Again, a nice kind of soul cover. I mean, she's pulls on all of her history on these. I mean, there's you know, hints of doo-wop and rock and soul and all kinds of good stuff on here. Side 2 has Cornered, The Sweetest One, Darling, I Need You, Messing Around, and Shadow Boxing. This is a great rockin', kind of punky, loose rock and roll album, and it's definitely worth picking up. It's a classic in my opinion. It's, you know, one of your better rockin' albums from the late 70s, and delivered by someone who knows what rock and the music is all about, baby. Good stuff. You should pick it up if you see it. Then in 1979, she followed that up with another self-produced album called And I Mean It in 1979, which was an equally good album, self-produced, had a lot of great rockin' tunes on it, like Pedal to the Metal, I Won't Sleep on the Wet Spot No More, which I think this is the first song I ever heard from her getting played on WBCN, and started me down this path. And Steve, Stubborn Kind of Girl, which is a remake of Stubborn Kind of Fella, well done. Then it's Me, Junk Man, which was a duet with Ian Hunter that features Mick Ronson on guitar, very nice tone, followed by Love Isn't Love, I'm Wired, 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 Roto Root Her, and Night Owl, which harkens back to her doo-wop days, but updated in a real cool rock and roll, punky, just garage sound. And this is a fucking awesome, this is a great album. You should pick this up if you see it. Do not leave it there. It would be a sin. Anyway, after this, she did some more production stuff. She produced Ronnie Spector's Siren comeback album. And then she kind of went on a hiatus. I guess, you know, she had lived the rock and roll lifestyle of drugs and rock and roll. And so she spent some time in rehab and got things together for a while. Then in 2003, she put out, I guess, kind of a compilation for fans only. I've never heard that, don't really know anything about it, but if I saw it, I would buy it. Then around 2006, little Steven Van Zandt approached her, and she started doing radio shows on the Underground Garage called Chicks and Broads, and another one called Goldie's Garage. And I guess she's been doing that for a while, and is pretty popular on there. Also in 2006, there was an album called Genya Ravan Live, which again I know nothing about, but you know, I've seen videos of her on YouTube where you can also see, you know, the Escorts and Goldie and the Gingerbreads, and she can flat out sing, and she's still got it in 2006 and beyond. So I'd say it would be worth picking up if you came across Genya Ravan Live from 2006. In 2010, she put out an album called Undercover, where she does Lucinda Williams covers, a cover of Tom Petty's song, Little Feat, even a Steely Dan song, as well as originals of her own that are very good. That, you know, I don't have this album, don't know that much about it, and but like I say, I've seen some of these songs on YouTube, and she's still got it, man. In 2013, there was an album called Cheesecake Girl. In 2019, an album called Icon, neither of which I know very much about, but again, if I come across them in the record store, they're mine, baby. Anyway, and in 2021, Ace Records put out a compilation of Goldie and the Gingerbreads complete recordings, which would be worth picking up if you come across that as well. Anyway, so as you can see, she's had quite a life in rock and roll. She's been doo-wop, British Invasion, or anti-British Invasion. She went the other way, and she was a jazz rock kind of thing. And she was like, you know, singer-songwriter, blues rock stuff in the early 70s, late 70s. She was more into punk and everything like that. She's almost like the Forrest Gump of rock and roll. So, I mean, she's been through it all, seen it all. And I tell you, if anyone belongs in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, it's Genya Ravan. If anybody needs to be talked about more, on these vinyl, YouTube videos. It's Genya Ravan. So if you run across them in the record store, baby, pick it up. I'm telling you, that's my advice. So anyway, have a wonderful, talk to you in the future, and bye.